What a gift. Thank you all so much for coming. We are super excited about our presenter today. I have had the pleasure and the honor of actually seeing Andrew perform with his choir at the Traeger Optimal Aging Institute Awards, and we have just been very impressed by just all of the neat, innovative things that he's done as an art therapist, or excuse me, a music therapist. So we just are very excited to have him today. Just to go over a couple of things, if you would please make sure you silence your cell phones. If you need to use the restrooms, they're right back through these doors, right past the receptionist area, right behind this wall there, and if you need help finding them, I'll be kind of in the back. I can help you show. So, my name is Gretchen Houchin. Probably should have said that first. I'm the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for Nazareth Home. I'll be here going on 19 years. Love this place. I've had a lot of family members live here. Just can't say enough great things about it. Just to let you all know, we do have independent living, personal care, long-term care, recovery at home, and then Alzheimer's dementia care. We also just started a new program. It's Nazareth at Home. We are providing non-medical, so it's companion care for individuals who need personal care in their homes. So we have some information on the back table. If you have any questions, I'll be around. And without further ado, please welcome Andrew Chapman. Thank you, sir.
Really strangely, Adam's kind of a common. I feel like,
okay.
I don't know, it happens all the time.
Sorry.
It's great. Thank you so much for coming to this community education series today. I'm going to try my best not to really ramble, because I'm here to talk about music, right? So we want to maybe do some music too at some point, but I also want to talk about briefly just how music can be incorporated in our everyday life outside of even being heard from a musician or even being played. I was talking to somebody before, I'm sorry for calling you out, but they said, I wish I had any music in my body. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today, is that really, scientifically, neurologically, we all have music in our body. We all have the capacity to respond to music in a really unique way. That's different than almost any other form of communication or entertainment or anything like that we participate in as people. That's especially important as an older adult and as someone caring for older adults. Thank you for having me. I guess I'll really quickly say just who I am so you can kind of get a sense of my background too. I am originally from Eastern Kentucky area, Johnson County, if anyone's familiar with Eastern Kentucky. Paintsville is where I grew up, and I grew up in an area and in a family that was really invested in caring for people, which I credit to most of my just kind of career. I don't know if I would exactly be the way I am without it. My mom was a nursing home chaplain for years, and I kind of just hung out in places like this. And I was also a young musician, and I had kind of a pushing mom, right? So she just kind of said, hey, go play the piano, go do something, play some hymns, just get up there and kind of interact. So that's where a lot of this buzz started for me. And I realized kind of early on that this is one of the most impactful things that you can do with somebody, and it creates a lot of attachment really quickly when you can play a song that someone really loves. So that's kind of the magic that started this all for me. And then when I started thinking about, hey, what do I want to do for my life? What do I want to do for my career? I started researching music therapy programs in the state, of which U of L has the only undergraduate one. So the decision was a little bit made for me to move to Louisville, but it was a wonderful decision. I attended U of L as an undergrad, which I was talking to folks earlier. At that moment, I was able to, during COVID, be a part of music therapy sessions as a student on Zoom with Nazareth Home. So it's a very full circle. It's lovely to be here in person. I remember seeing a lot of the units on Zoom and interacting musically that way. So it's so great to just be here and have this full circle moment a little bit. After I graduated from U of L, I am now the coordinator of our music therapy clinic. What that means is I don't do a ton of teaching, besides I supervise students, right? So students who are learning how to do music therapy, I'm their supervisor for clinical placement, but mostly I'm a community coordinator for our services at the School of Music and Music Therapy Clinic. So that looks like a whole bunch of things. It looks like I work with everyone from preschoolers to older adults, from folks with autism and Down syndrome to Parkinson's and dementia, all sides sort of across the board. That's kind of what I like. I really like a diverse group of folks to work with. And what I found is that music is equally beneficial for all these settings, if we might use it in different ways between the settings. So obviously I'm kind of focusing in on music in aging today. So I'm going to talk the most about that, but before that, I'm going to talk just a little bit, briefly mention some of the boring stuff, some of the research. I think maybe you can go to the next slide. Yeah. Great. So, I know that this may be kind of small for you to see, so I will read it too, just so you can kind of take it all in. But what this is a very short description of, oh, and you have printouts. Incredible. This is so great. So you have kind of a brief overview here of what music therapy actually is. I know we hear that term a lot, kind of music is my therapy, music functions as a therapy, which is 100% true, right? Would anyone else raise your hand, do you agree that music is a therapy, that music is your therapy? Yeah, so many folks. I think that's totally a sort of universal experience. And what music therapy really is a profession, an allied health profession, that is centered around that principle and is centered around that idea. So you have a credential field that is especially trained to use the tools of music to achieve these non-musical goals that are common in any therapy. So that's essentially what this is saying here. Music therapy is the clinical and evidence-based use of music intervention to accomplish individualized goals within a therapeutic relationship by a credentialed professional. That's the sort of cut and dry elevator speech you'll hear from a lot of music therapists. But what it means is kind of what I just said, is that we're specially trained to use all the elements of music, whether that's melody, whether it's rhythm, whether it's dynamics, loud or soft. We're trained to manipulate and change all of those elements to achieve some sort of non-musical goal. And I'll talk really briefly about what those goals are now. Actually, I don't think this is in a slide, but I mean, you can kind of use your inference for this, but there's actually a lot of research to support these things. Music supports cognitive and physical rehabilitation. Music supports social engagement by group music activities like choirs, like drum circles, like songwriting groups. Music connects to our emotions, to our self-concept. I mean, I think you'd probably feel pretty good about yourself if you could play an instrument pretty well, or if you stood up and did an incredible performance and got that applause, right? I talk about all the time that we're in a society that really values music. You can just look around and see that. Pop stars, musicians, in concerts, live music, these are all things that are heavily valued, and so to have a really successful music experience, especially as someone who's maybe I don't know if I can do the music thing. I don't know if I can be that sort of elevated, feel that good about what I'm doing. To have that experience with a group of people who maybe feel similarly can be really affirming, can be a really interesting self-concept. Not only with this choir that I'm going to talk about later, the Optimal Aging Choir, this is also, I do this sort of thing with a rock band that we have at our clinic. That's an all abilities rock band. So it's for all ages of adults with disabilities. So that's a very, very sort of a lot of these folks, if they were not able, and this is similar for folks in older adulthood, is that if you wanted to join a band, if you wanted to join a choir, there are less opportunities available for you typically. There are maybe more barriers to access, right? In these sort of stages of life, or these sort of multiple abilities in which our society is not really geared to offer that to you as immediately as maybe someone who has those resources, whether that be ability or life circumstance. So what we really try and do with the clinic is to provide those opportunities to folks who may not have the ability to access them readily. And that's the idea of self-concept, self-emotion, that music accesses those parts of ourselves as well as accessing the real more like motor and actual sort of speech and cognitive rehab in our brain too. Also, music affects the environments all around us. So music, in addition to affecting our motor and our cognitive and our emotions, affects all those things of the people around us. So think about, maybe if you are an older adult, think about your caregiving team. If you're part of a caregiving team, maybe think about your team, right? Music can be very effective. Musical intervention especially can be very effective for those, like the communities that you are a part of, not only yourself. As sort of a resource for stress management, maybe, for just a good mood, for emotional management as well, maybe. So those are all sort of, I mean, I could talk for hours and hours and hours about all the research and all those sort of things. I don't want to bore you. But those are sort of the things that we're looking for when we're thinking about music therapy and how it affects different areas of our brain, but also how it affects our society and the people around us. Music, I always say, is like a ripple in a pond, right? You have one instance of music that affects so many things. It affects something in your brain, it affects something in the people around you, it connects to the people around you, but it also doesn't always stop just right where you are. It spreads out to the communities that you were part of. It makes you think maybe of a time in your past. It's a reminiscing agent. Right? Music is. How many people have a song that they associate with a memory in their past? Yeah. I mean, heck, wedding first dances, you know, like those sort of things. Music is a strong tie to those things. But it also connects us to our communities at large. For example, if you're in a concert and there's an audience there, or maybe you're me today and there's an audience here, music is connecting me to you right now. Music has brought us together. And it's going to take you out into the other places in your lives as well. You have a variety of musical connections as well as personal connections, right? Those often run parallel. So that's the idea, right? That music is not just a you thing. It's not just an insular thing, but it's a drop in the pond that can affect everyone around you. So if you get anything from today, here's what I want you to get, is that I want you to be on the lookout for places that you can interact with music more in your everyday life. Whether that's talking to people about music, whether that's making music with other people, whether it's maybe intentionally listening to some calming music when you're trying to go to sleep, think about how music can be involved in your life. Because it's a natural thing, right? I'm going to give you some examples today of how that could happen, aside from what I just said. But that's kind of my hope, that's my thesis for today. Got it? Okay, let's keep going. Great. Apologies for all these allergies. It's not a good time to be, in Louisville. It never really is, actually. I'm sure many of you have. Yeah, you're with me. So I'm going to show a couple of videos and give you a break from myself talking. But what I really want you to understand with these is this is exactly what I was talking about. I'm going to give you some examples of how music interacts with our brain to achieve change. And these are protocols done by music therapists trained to do these protocols, but they don't own this knowledge, right? They don't own the ways that music interacts with our brain. So you may find yourself saying, oh my gosh, maybe I could do, because this person has learned to walk again with the help of a therapist, and because the rhythm is guiding their steps, maybe I could do some more music while I'm walking. Maybe I could, it's as simple as that. So that's my hope. I'm not hoping that you go and do these exact protocols and, you're exactly doing what is happening here, but just to kind of spark some ideas. So maybe let's look at this rhythmic auditory stimulation first. And I'm actually going to bring this back over here so you can hear that.
This is how online studying for anatomy.
Not the ad.
Med school boot camp to learn the cadaver anatomy online.
YouTube. So this individual suffered a stroke, severe impairments with walking, 3 weeks of So here's his post-music therapy gait. Notice it's pretty uneven. They were able to speed his gait up through rhythmic auditory stimulation. They're going to take the pain away. This is just after one music therapy session. They took away the music, even. Incredible. I love that so much. Great. You can go back to the So that's what the before again, yeah. So notice that, number one, obviously he sped up. He's able to have a more consistent gait after that. But the reason that's working is because you notice that the music was incredibly rhythmically stimulating, right? It had a very strong ba, da, da. What they did at the beginning is they took a measurement of his gait and how he was originally walking and graphed that onto a metronome, which is basically just that. 1, 2, and matched it. And then slowly, that beat allowed his brain to plan better. This is what happens in the brain, is that there's this lovely bundle of nerves called the arcuate fasciculus, which is a really big word, but it connects our speech centers and our music processing centers to our motor centers in our brain. So he hears this beat, his brain says, yes, I'm going to use that beat as a framework so you can plan better. That's really all it is. Your brain is planning better for the next step. So you hear this beat, you can kind of anticipate when the next beat is going to come. And that helps you sort of align with the beat. So similarly, just try it for yourself. Just tap on your lap to this beat like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Nice. You can tell where the next beat's coming, right? You can kind of plan. You can feel it in your body. It's what's happening with the drums, with the rhythm. And then what happens when you speed it up? You know exactly where that beat's coming to. Exactly. So it's a shortcut, basically. It's a musical rhythmic shortcut for promoting rhythm and motor movement in the body in a lot of different ways. This can happen in any sort of physical rehab. The same concept is applied a little bit. So that's rhythm and tempo. That's how the rhythm is affecting our brain. Let's look at melody. Melody meaning, if you are one of those people that's like, I am not hyper musical, I don't know anything about what you're saying. Melody being this da 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 da, the contour. Could you pause it for a second? Yeah. So this is something known as melodic intonation therapy. That's used in a lot of cases as well post-stroke, but also any sort of rehabilitation setting. This is often indicated for. If you notice, so they're using the phrase, give me my sweater. How would you say that phrase? Maybe just try it with me. Give me my sweater. Notice how you sort of, try it one more time. Give me my sweater. Da, 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 da. It's got a certain contour, right? In the same way that a melodic line has a contour. You've probably seen different examples of, and this is kind of a common representation of music therapy, in which someone maybe who can't remember or speak much else can sing a very familiar song. This is a pretty common sort of thing that circulates. If you haven't seen it, it's really, really cool to see. This is kind of playing on the same ideas, that give me my sweater is easier to sing than it is to say. And this is a neuroscience thing. It's just easier to access multiple areas of the brain. Music is a whole brain activity you hear a lot. It interacts with every area of the brain all at once. So maybe when a section of the brain has been deactivated or has been hurt in some way, music can then create a new pathway to a different part of the brain. So instead of really thinking, give me my sweater, you're thinking instead, let's just sing it. Give me my sweater, you know? Give me my sweater. And then what neurologic music therapists will do, which is what this is a protocol of, they will then, similar to the walking, they'll fade out the music. So then you've learned, give me my sweater. And oftentimes it works great, so you'll see that here. Let's watch the process a little bit. Typically, this takes many, many sessions, and there's usually an in-between. There's this idea of like Sprechgesang, maybe? Oh, I wrote it on my sorry. So that's a music term, a Sprechgesang, which is, it sounds German, and it is. It's an opera thing, where in opera, they will sort of like midway sing, midway talk. It's a little bit of both. Da, 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 da. You know, it's kind of it's more music than speech, but it's less speech than music, if that makes sense. So usually that's where we end up with MIT, is that there's some sort of like musical speech that emerges, but it's not direct singing, right? So it's another area of the brain that music is affecting. And then the last thing I'm going to breeze through today is musical speech stimulation, which is playing on this idea of memory and this idea of actual like cognitive long-term memory to prompt speech. So I'm going to get my guitar out for this. I'm going to play it loud, so hopefully you can hear. My hope in demonstrating here, it's a little out of tune. My hope here is that I want you to think about, how do we learn songs? How do songs over the years get ingrained in our brain so well that it's just like muscle memory, which it literally is, right? So think about this song. You are my sunshine, yeah, my only sunshine. You make me happy. You'll sound great. Keep going. And skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Yeah, incredible. Yeah. Or another song about sun. I guess you'd say, what can make me feel this way? What is it? Fire. Yeah, exactly. Talking about my girl. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How did you know what to sing? You just learned it, right? You know it, yeah? So this is the same concept, is that a lot of times music, melody, songs can be like muscle memory for us. Obviously you got to choose the right song. I couldn't have chosen any song and you wouldn't have known it, right? But this is what happens a lot of times with music, care, and older adults, is that the songs we choose typically need to be of a familiar set of songs. They need to be preferred, is what the language the music therapist would use. Patient preferred or client preferred, whatever the language is you want to use. But that's going to be the most effective in anything. Obviously, if you know a song and you like it, you're going to be more receptive to feeling the beat. If you know a song and you like it, you're going to be more receptive to singing along. And you're certainly going to know the words better. So a lot of times I use this sort of principle in everywhere from memory care centers to also, any sorts of disabilities where the speech language center of the brain is maybe not developing as it typically would. This could be something like autism, or it could be something like Down syndrome, or anything. A lot of folks who are typically nonverbal will even have some of these reactions, right? That there's this expectancy that's created with music, especially in My Girl, right? You've got this giant build. You say what can make me feel this way? You're like on the tip of your toes. My girl. Exactly. So I'm not going to bog you down with music terms, but what comes right before that is called a dominant chord, and musically, and just naturally, it wants to resolve. Yeah? So anyone who's taken a music theory class, maybe way back in the day, or is like a very good musician, knows this kind of idea that one time you want to resolve into something. So this is that musical expectancy idea that works with musical speech stimulation, but also with any sort of response, right? So whether you're hitting a drum, whether you're playing a piano, you're going to want to finish that thought. It's like a conversation. It's like I ask you a question and you're responding. How are you today? I'm great, right? So in this way, music is very much, you hear this all the time, that it's like the universal language. It is a language in itself. And that's a great thought, but truly, it actually is. There are elements of music that interact with our brain in a way that's very similar to language, to question asking, to response, to saying things together. So I hope that's given you just a little bit of insight into, and you can kind of feel and see that, oh yeah, whenever music's on, something's happening in my body, even if you didn't recognize that or don't always recognize that. Earlier I was in here and seeing Dawn play, so amazing, and I saw people tapping their feet. Why does that happen? It's because the music really inhabits us and it gets in our brain, and it's a perfect way to make connection and to grow. So that's sort of why this whole thing works to me, is the brain. Of course, there are things outside the brain that impact us too, like what kind of music that we even prefer, our histories, all those kind of things. But that's the syntax, that's the grammar of music, is how it interacts with the brain. Okay, let's move on a little bit. I think actually I might skip this slide. I do that all the time where I lean my guitar up on something precarious and then it inevitably falls. I'm like, why did I do that? So I just sat it on the table. We won't have that happening today. All right. Cool. Let's get into some real world stuff. Not that the brain isn't real, but let's get into some stuff that I do. So I just want to give you one example of how this might work out in your everyday life. If you're an older adult, if you're a caregiver of an older adult. Recently, about a year ago, about last July, so almost a year and about 6 months or so, half a year, I guess, we started this choir called the Optimal Aging Choir. It's in coordination with the Traeger Optimal Aging Institute, and we host it at the Northeast YMCA. So that's just kind of a shameless plug. I think there's information about it in the flyer too. But right now we're meeting every Thursday. It may say something different in the flyer, but we're meeting Thursdays at 1:15 at the Northeast YMCA, if anyone's interested. The point of this is that it's open to all ability levels. It's intentionally social. We're targeting things not just music, right? We are learning a little bit of some music parts. We're singing together. We're enjoying the experience. But it's not just that. We are also like connecting with each other socially. I mentioned earlier that music connects socially. I mean, you probably just experienced it, right? Singing together with people in a group is very naturally kind of bonds you a little bit. But we also just have fun, right? We like see each other, we form new connections, we have a new resource, a new community together. So that's really lovely. In addition, we do some movement to music. So we'll do body percussion, we'll do stretches and warm-ups that are music focused. So I mentioned before, music can prompt movement. So sometimes we'll do a stretch where I'm like, do, 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 stretch really high, do, 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 do. You know, so we'll do music prompted things live. That's kind of playing on some of these ideas about how music interacts with our bodies and our brains. Obviously, we're doing many things to improve the quality of life. But we're also working on things like breath support and articulation. A lot of the folks that are part of the choir are part of the Parkinson's program, exercise program at the Y too. So that's a really common need actually, is this idea about breath support. Parkinson's obviously a lot of times affects support of your breath and your articulation. So music, we do a lot of intentional breathing to prepare for the lines that we sing. We do breathing cued by music, so breathing cued by that rhythm. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. That can calm your body down, but it's also regulating. It's regulating your breathing, if maybe your breathing's not very naturally regulated, like mine is today. And then I mentioned the social emotional support aspect of this choir too. What I really want to mention though, outside of all these like brain things and all these social support things that are happening with the choir, is I wanted to show you an example of a songwriting experience that we had in this choir. There's a guy that came in. I see some of our choir folks in the audience, so hello, you know what I'm talking about. But there's this lovely guy named Steve who wrote a song. Well, he wrote a poem actually first, and he brought it to me and said, hey, can you help me make this into a song? It's all about his fight with Parkinson's. Those are his words. The song is called Parkinson's Warrior. It's a really lovely song. And we were able to write that with Steve and teach it to the choir and then perform it at the School of Music in December. So I'm going to show you a quick video of that. Things I want you to think about while we're showing the video are, you know, I mentioned earlier how performance and how sort of public engagement with our community can affect our self-esteem. Think about how it might feel if you maybe had no music experience and, you know, had just ideas for, oh, if I wrote a song, I would love it to sound like this. And then that happened, and you sang it with a group of your peers in front of a very welcoming, supportive audience that's cheering you on, right? This is a very, like, the hope and the intent for this performance was self-concept and self-esteem. It's to say, your voice is valuable past all of this brain stuff that music is doing, which is still happening. The thing that I really love to focus on is to look at a group and to turn us towards an audience and say, look, you are valued. Look, here's how you can express your voice in this way that maybe you didn't think that you could before. So, all that to say, let's watch a little bit of this. It might be for, oh, actually, can you go back? I think it's linked on the Optimum Choir board. I forgot I did that. Let's hope it happens. Yay. We can full screen at the bottom. I think we can do more. On the bottom of the screen. That's a great song. I just love it. Thank you for listening. Steve is really great, and this choir is really great. It's been a lovely, lovely experience being with them and making music with them. In the same way that all of my clinical experiences are, it's just really lovely to kind of get together with a group of people. Like I said earlier, many of whom were like, I really don't know if this singing thing is for me. I'm just kind of part of this Parkinson's group, or I just heard about this in the community, and I thought I'd just come and give it a shot. I always wanted to sing in the choir, and we sing things like we sang today. We sing familiar songs, not just original songs, of which we only have one so far, but wait, more are coming, I promise. I kind of want to tie everything I've been talking about together in this group. That this kind of thing can happen wherever, right? I am a music therapist, so I have a really good perspective on, well, maybe here's how we structure our time, here's the kind of arrangements, the kind of songs we do, but you don't need all this training to get together with a group of your friends and listen and sing along to music for fun. You don't need all this training to put on a playlist at your own house, to look up a song you like on YouTube. There's lots of free music options out there for you if you're interested. I have a couple even recommendations. They're especially for caregivers who are working with a lot of technology and technology support. There's a couple of really great playlist creation apps that are available for you. One thing I didn't mention was this idea that music can manage like energy level as well, and mood. I kind of mentioned mood, but there's this lovely app called Isify that if you connect it to your Spotify, which I know I'm throwing out a lot of like words, Spotify being like a music streaming service. You connect it to your Spotify and then assign a select number of songs on a playlist. It'll tell you what energy level each song is on a graph, and you can then order the playlist so that it goes from very low energy to very high energy, or very high energy to very low energy. So maybe you're like, I really want to exercise, but I have a really hard time getting the motivation. Maybe you start at a very low energy where you already are, because research says that, for example, if you're happy and you listen to sad, well, if you're sad, you want to be happy, and you listen to very sad, happy music immediately, it's not going to make you very happy, because you're going to be like, what the heck, I feel sad right now. I'm not going to immediately feel happy because I'm listening to happy music. Maybe sometimes that works, but it's more effective if you start listening at where you already are, and then slowly get to where you want to be, right? Same kind of with anything, but with energy too. So maybe I'm really low energy, and I want to start low energy, but I want to get to really high energy. So apps like Isify would help you organize a playlist to slowly increase in energy, in fastness or slowness, so that practically maybe it gets you there. Same with mood. Same with maybe even transition times in the day. If you're a caregiver with someone who has trouble maybe in those transitionary times, like going to bed, doing some of those activities of daily living, those could also be important moments of the day to integrate music into. Maybe you have a ritual music song for every time you're going to bed. Maybe you have a ritual song for every time you get up. Maybe it would get, a lot after a while to have the same song. Maybe you might want to change it up. But those things can be really effective, because after a while we start to associate those musical memories with the idea that, okay, it's time to get up. Okay, it's time to go to bed. We can develop our own sort of rituals with music. Because, like we mentioned earlier, music is learned, and we store it in our body like muscle memory, right? So that's a lot of stuff. I think, yes, let's transition into, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I do. I have actually that resonates with my thoughts very much.
What is it?
Do you have any experience or knowledge about sound bathing?
Oh, that's a great question. Betsy, because I know Betsy's name, asked about sound bathing. Do I have any knowledge about sound bathing? I have minimal knowledge. I would not say to you, don't search out anything based on sound bathing. That's not my area of expertise. However, there are folks that have total certifications in sound bathing and can tell you all about vibrations and how that interacts with your body. I know little about that and more about how music interacts with them bring in kind of like how I've been talking about. But there are opportunities around Louisville, and if that's something you think that you might be interested in, I would encourage you to seek it out because it's a really cool thing, but not as much now. Yeah. Anything else?
What is sound bathing?
Sound, that's a great question too. Sorry, I didn't totally explain sound bathing, mainly because I don't know too much about it. But the common explanation of sound bathing and the thing that you might see often is folks kind of sitting in a room together, and there are these things called singing bowls that look like just a kind of a giant metal bowl, and you have a stick typically of a specific kind of metal too, I think. And similar to kind of like a glass, like how a glass might make a specific vibration, that bowl makes a specific vibration after you tap it, and you sort of encourage the vibration. So the idea is that those specific vibrations and the frequencies of the music help you to do different things, whether that's calm down at night, whether it's achieves even sort of like a emotional well-being or like a therapeutic sort of like internal mental well-being. I've never experienced that myself, really. It's a little bit separate, to be honest. Like the music therapy field and some sound healing bathing stuff is a little bit separate. Not to say that you couldn't achieve some benefits from that, but I don't know as much about it, though.
You mentioned something about drumming. Can you talk about the rhythm of drumming and how that is perhaps therapeutic? I see a lot of things about drumming circles. I don't know where they are.
100%, yes. So the question was about drum circles and the therapeutic effects of drumming. I mentioned briefly that idea earlier. But yes, absolutely. Drumming works on much the same way as this rhythmic stimulus does that I was talking about earlier. But not only that, it also provides connection, community connection. So, for example, you imagine if you're in a drum circle and you're passing around a beat, which is a common thing to do in a drum circle, right? You're all kind of imitating a beat. In the same way that it would work if you were singing with somebody, you have this connection with them, right? That's sort of an automatic thing. It transcends a little bit of like, well, I don't have to get to know you that much, but I know that we're doing exactly the same thing, we're experiencing the same thing. So it's a sort of automatic connection, is often a really great part about drum circles. I do know, I don't have a ton of information about sort of any pop-up drum circles that much in Louisville, but yes, I would even encourage you to sort of look out for those opportunities. Here, I even have, and this is in your handout too, some current choirs that I know of that are going on, but also, if you're ever interested in individual drumming or individual sessions as well, you can reach out to our clinic, which accepts individual referrals too. Yeah.
There was a World War II couple, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
The woman is the one who had advanced Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
and the man and she had met during World War II. And as her Alzheimer's progressed, he would take her in their car, and you remember the old cassettes that you used to be able to stick in?
Oh yeah.
Well, he played, Bugle Boy and all the songs from World War II, and she would come alive in the car and give him very significant come hither looks.
Yeah.
It brought her to life at every level, and they could just look at each other and bond to the music, and it was a communion.
Yeah.
And the saddest day they had was when she couldn't step up into that van, but the staff helped her and put her in the van so that they could have their little drive around and listen to the songs from World War II.
Incredible.
So this was the most romantic use of music I've ever seen.
Yeah, that is incredible. And this is a really great point that music can also bond you, interpersonally, right? I mentioned earlier the wedding dance song as kind of a very classic thing that couples remember. But maybe you're a caregiver, right, for a couple, and this could be a very, very significant, experience for them, bonding experience. To speak to that idea of, I'll keep going because I don't want to ramble, but yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Hey, good to see you. I'm great.
I'm part of the Ultimate Aging Choir, and I'm telling you, it is the most wonderful experience you've ever experienced. It's wonderful if you've got the time, make the effort to get there and
sharing. Yeah, so good to see you again. Thank you, thank you. I'm walking around here. Yeah, go for it.
3 years ago, I had surgery. I had 2 surgeries in 1 month, and Dr. Andrew Chapman, and she needed music therapy in Norton.
Great, yeah.
And one lady was from Louisville, the other was from Dallas University. And I know when they worked with me, it was 2.5 hours. I felt no pain.
That's incredible. Yes, absolutely. This is a great, and thank you for, testimony is the wrong word, I guess, but yeah. What is it?
When I was at the hospital in Peru, the Center for Pediatric Surgery and Missouri, I went to the hospital at the home without getting it all the time. You have West and you have surgeries, surgeries are hard.
It is, absolutely. These stories both actually connect in a really cool way that there are actually a ton of studies based on pain management in hospitals. A lot of these are like literally music can decrease your length of stay in a hospital after a surgery because of pain management. And I've even been involved in a couple clinical experiences where I provided procedural support. So even playing music while maybe like a port was accessed or something, or some sort of treatment or procedure that needed to be managed during. So it can be a really powerful thing in those moments. Thank you both for sharing that. Yeah, you have a question?
Many years ago, I was going to volunteer to be a music therapist or provide music in Norton's Hospital. And they said, we have to have a TB test. I'm going, why? And then I realized I had to be around patients.
Yeah.
And I still play there on Monday. I play here once a month. But I played in adult daycare on Monday or Tuesday. Anyway, the lady had, when her younger days, had been a singer on Broadway. And she had dementia. And the staff got all excited because I was playing, I wasn't paying attention that much, but I was playing songs from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, a lot of sometimes. They said that she has dementia, but she sang to every song that I played. And that staff just got so tickled because they were listening to the people sing, but she sang about every song. And it just brought back memories for her. I'm just so glad that not only did I play for her, but she got to experience the songs she used to sing, and she used to like to sing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Kyle down in Norton, maybe Kyle, music therapy, he's got red hair. Maybe you've seen him around. He's really cool. Yeah. And if you keep your eye out, we've got a lot of music therapy programs in Louisville. If you're ever at Norton hospitals, they're very present. Definitely ask for them. But there are also at U of L Hospital, there's a music therapist who is spread out across a ton of different sites. But she's lovely too. But yeah.
I work with a musical group. They're known as the Silver Notes. You might know them. They go around and do it about 20 years. They always wear the same reflective silvery vests. They are a really flashy group, about 20, 25 people. They've actually played at Nazareth Home at Clifton, I believe, and a few other places around town. But they're still going strong 20 years later. So.
Amazing. Check out the Silver Notes. That's incredible. Thank you. Thank you. I love the resource sharing. I love the testimonial. This is incredible. Thank you all.
There are harpists that play at Hildegard House for the dying.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you all. All right. I want to leave you again. I'm going to recap my thesis, and this is my last word, is that I love how we've been sharing these stories of music and how we've seen these affect folks in our lives. I want to encourage you again that even if you have gone through your life saying, I could never play an instrument, I could never sing, I don't have a musical bone in my body, there's something there, right? Your brain's connecting somehow. And I wanted that to be empowering to you in all these ways, that it's accessing all these areas of our brain at all times. So whether it's playing recorded music and clapping along or singing to it with someone you know and love, whether it's joining a group, whatever that means for you, I hope you go out there and do it. Feel free. I'll be around directly after, so come and say hey if you want. And I'd love to talk to you more. But otherwise, thank you all so much.